Oh, 100%. You know, you think, wow, like far out, like I live such a privileged life. You know, I am a child of refugees.
Wow.
Yet I don't think I realised that until I was 40 years old that, oh, wow, like my parents escaped from a war-torn country. And, you know, I have no idea what that's like. You know, I am an Aussie and I have been privileged. You know, one of my best mates at school said, man, you used to eat Cocoa Pops for breakfast, you know.
Wow.
And I think, wow, I have no idea, you know. I was talking to Mum the other day and she was like, yeah, you know, some people in Australia haven't been hungry, you know, they haven't. And it's like, wow, my mum was quite poor growing up, and you know, I think, wow, I have no idea of that kind of life. Yet the resilience and the strength and the wisdom and the knowledge that you can gain, you know, when you talk to people who have endured and lived through, you know, some of the most horrific stuff, you're going, wow, like, yeah, I think, I just think humans are fascinating and we have so much to learn from each other.
Welcome back to the Justice Matters podcast. This morning I had the privilege of sitting down with Jude Kalman. Now, she is an award-winning documentary cinematographer who was recently awarded the 2020 Graham Wade Pilgrim Media Prize. That's a mouthful. But she was also invited as a result to speak at the United Nations, their 58th Commission for Social Development. She has such a passion to tell people's story through her craft of documentary filmmaking. She's even started her own production house called Fish Films, where she's able to get along and support NGOs and charities in their work to really tell the important stories of the poor and the oppressed and elevate their voices. You know, as I sat down with her and we talked, she is such a delightful and joyful, beautiful person to talk to, and her passion for this work that she has really oozes through in our conversation. She really takes so seriously the task that she has to tell the stories that she's given with respect, with integrity, and really with honor. And if you have any interest in the art of storytelling, of film and documentary making, I know that you're going to thoroughly enjoy this conversation that I have with her. Here it is, my conversation with Jude Kalman. Jude, thanks for coming into the studio.
Oh, no problem. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. And how does it feel to be on the other side of the camera?
Not going to lie, I'm a little bit nervous. I'm way more comfortable behind the camera. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
But happy to be here.
I heard you got some good advice from your family this morning.
Yes, I did.
Yep.
Do you want to hear the advice?
Why not?
Well, what can't? No. Okay, the advice was to have fun.
Okay.
So I'm got to remember that.
Yeah.
The second most important thing was not to fart. So clearly I have 3 step-sons.
Yes.
And that's an issue.
Okay.
Yeah, it's real. It's
Alrighty.
real. So I'm going to try my best.
That's a pretty fun advice there.
Oh, I thought wisdom. That's wisdom right there. So.
Well, what did you think of that bulletproof coffee? Is that kind of kicked in yet?
It's slowly releasing.
It's slowly
releasing.
releasing.
It's slow. So it's good. It's good.
Yeah. So I don't know. This bulletproof coffee, I've kind of started getting it more recently, and just the sound of it is cool, but the fact that it's got this high octane brain oil that slow releases the caffeine. How could you pass that up?
Yeah. Although I'm a bit worried about my brain exploding. No.
Hey.
But the slow release
of the caffeine.
Blah, 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 blah.
I know. So as you can tell, it's already kind of like slowing our speech down a bit. But look, thanks again, for coming to the studio, and I'm just thrilled to just be able to have this conversation with you. I know how, from personal experience, how important the work of people in film and in photography and in arts and media is in telling the stories of those that are around us, especially lifting the voiceless who often don't have the opportunity to share their story. And I love that you've dedicated your craft, your gift to that. And I guess I'm kind of curious as to where it all began, you know, for you. Where did it begin with this idea of wanting to tell the stories of the oppressed, wanting to kind of orient your passion and your life work towards, you know, having a social impact on our world for the good?
Well, I think I've always loved film ever since I was little. And I don't think the penny dropped until I was working throughout Africa for an NGO and, you know, making financial education DVDs. I think prior to that, I remember working on Scooby-Doo and I loved it, and it was a goal that I had, and it was like, oh my gosh, I'm on a Hollywood film. This is epic. And then I kind of went, wow, hold on. Like, although storytelling's awesome, like, is this it, you know? And I think maybe I started thinking about it, but it wasn't till probably maybe 10 years later within the industry when I was working in the field in Africa, and I went, wow, maybe I could use my skill set behind a camera to empower and to encourage and to help people, to hear from people themselves, you know?
Right.
I think definitely working with that company at that time, I got to meet so many amazing people and I learnt so much from people, and we're working with the poorest of the poor, and yet they were so entrepreneurial and they were so switched on, and I thought, wow, like, I think I realised with my craft too that maybe I could use my craft for not just selling a product or, you know, or telling a story that might be okay, but it's kind of shallow, or I don't know.
But you know, when I think about, we talked a bit about this before, when it comes to telling people's story, and you kind of referenced even just then, this idea of letting people tell their own stories. How important is that kind of, how important is that to you when it comes to, you know, the power of story, and then the power of, you know, what makes it so compelling to you when you give people the chance and the time and the opportunity to be able to tell their own story?
I think humans are fascinating. I think everyone has a story. And in the years that I've been doing this, as you listen to someone and really give them opportunity to talk and, you know, tell their story and share their story. And, you know, when you're interviewing people, you're actively listening and you're having a conversation. You know, I've learnt that, wow, there's people have wisdom and gems inside them, and I just find that so fascinating. I just find people fascinating, and it's like I've worked with agency kind of work and selling products and, you know, advertising and stuff like that. And, you know, you write scripts and you assume a lot of things.
Right.
But when I know what I love about what I'm trying to do is, okay, I understand how to interview someone. I know how to listen to them and kind of let them just tell their story because they have such wisdom. You can't assume you know that person that you're talking to, or you can't assume the circumstance that they've been in. So it's really sort of just sitting back and going, yeah, tell me about it. Help me understand what you've been through, you know, because I don't want to assume or bring any prior knowledge. I'm here to listen and to learn, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, how many times have I, in the past with my current charity and with the work I've done in Iraq, when we've talked about, hey, let's film, a 5-minute piece to better talk about what we're doing. We've gone into it with this, you know, we've got to do this, and this is what we've got to tell the audience, and this is how we want to do it. And you kind of get halfway into it and you're like, oh, this is like, it's like grinding. How do we like force this into, and it just feels manufactured. And I guess that's kind of the beauty maybe of the ability to do something a bit more longer.
Yes.
Pieces. What made you kind of get pulled into the kind of longer story format of documentary film? It seemed, from looking at your work, it just seems like that's kind of where you really thrive or really
Well, yeah, I
land.
love longer format because, one, you have the ability to really share someone's story well, and or a subject or an issue. It's not just kind of quick in and out sort of thing. Like you can meet people and go on their journey with them. And I suppose in longer format, how I love to do it is really, again, you're kind of information gathering and you're listening and you're hearing, again, like you said earlier, okay, we've got this plan. But once you start sitting down, talking to people, and like say with Uncontained Love, we spoke to a lot of people and it was kind of like, whoa, this reoccurring theme. Then you start realizing, wow, hold on, this isn't just happening to one person. This has happened to so many people,
yes.
and those sort of things too. And you're not assuming, you're not hearing from the headlines. You're hearing from people's actual lives and their experiences. So,
gosh, so much of media these days is like that headline. We've got a message we want to give to you, and we'll just take whatever sound bites are out there to kind of reinforce this message. It's almost like, whether it's on social media or in news media, it's so hard to find the genuine, authentic, what is the reality on the ground. Like when we were living in Iraq, people would constantly say, are you okay? What's going on? Because they're watching the news. And at one point in time, we had to just turn the news off ourselves because we're getting ourselves afraid and worried by watching the news of what's happening, in and around us. But that isn't the reality. That isn't the what is happening in my community, in my world, and it's so, I guess it's just so important. So was it long into your kind of career that you kind of did the switch more to documentary, or have you already been, did you do that from
I think
the beginning?
I've sort of dabbled because I'm in production. I've done all sorts of things. It was probably, a couple of years ago I decided, I drew a line in the sand and went, I'm going to go out and pursue it more in my own kind of way, and that's why I started Fish Films. So, gosh, I've worked in the industry for 20 years doing all sorts of things and working on different docos, whether that's filming it or editing it or, but I guess my docos, have more of a social kind of justice vibe to it and to give a voice. I've just really was compelled. I remember sitting on a set a couple of years ago, might have even been last year, where I was really convicted, and I thought, wow, like I've had the opportunity to work on films and behind the scenes and stuff, and I thought, wow, like these people already have a voice. I want to use my skill set for those that don't, and I want to do it respectfully. I think there's a fine line of I get the sensationalizing stuff, and and the like, I hate the word clickbait kind of thing. All that stuff really, I hate all that sort of stuff, but I understand to get people's attention and how to tell a good story and a compelling story. So for me, I guess I'm always trying to wrestle between, I understand that, but I also want to tell a story that's respectful. I also want to tell a story that is true. And, as a cinematographer, I want to put it in its best light and put the person, the situation, the circumstance, in its best light. So, yeah.
Oh, and I love that. I love that dedication to listening, to making sure that you really are getting the truth, that you're not putting the assumptions and the sensationalism into, projecting that into it. I think that is incredibly respectful and obviously something that is very reflects the person that you are too, Jude. Now, you kind of referred to Uncontained Love, which was a documentary that you
shot in Nigeria,
Nigeria.
Nigeria. So it was actually about the displaced people of Nigeria and the surrounding countries. They'd been displaced by the Boko Haram, and also another terrorist group called the Fulani group. So again, we just travelled in there, and I really wanted to. One, we were learning about what happened and what is happening in Nigeria. For me, I'm really passionate about the developed world learning about what's happening in the developing nations. You don't really hear about those kind of stories.
No.
And yeah, like, wow, I got to meet some amazing people with incredible stories and incredible strength and, and determination and, Uncontained Love is about, it's actually about love is greater than fear, and that, love will win. Love wins over fear, and fear tries to shut you down, but when you operate out of love, you can get up again. So
wow.
Yeah, it's a real thing, fear. So we got to interview a lot of people who had been held at gunpoint, shot, stabbed, they were, really horrible stories. But their stories are definitely a part of who they are and what they've been through. And you just go, wow, this person has endured so much, yet they're still standing and they're still, moving on and living, and it's a part of them. I just find it fascinating.
Yeah.
I can't even do people's stories justice. How do they move forward and how do they move on? But people are, and they're trying their best, and they're just, yeah.
I think it's so important that we do listen to other people's stories. It kind of helps us to realize areas in our own lives that we've struggled with fear. It's can often be not only enlightening and helping us to how do we address the suffering that they're going through, but how do I even personally move forward in life and look at the reality of the fear that holds me back, the fear that keeps me from loving others or being open to being loved myself. Now that film did get an award, correct?
Yeah, it got a couple actually.
Okay. What awards were they?
One of them was, oh my goodness, like the most compelling it was actually an Australian award, Christian Media and Arts Award for the most compelling documentary. And it also won in another film festival.
I've got the printout here, maybe.
Oh, yeah, I'm terrible with.
I know.
So I never put my films in film stuff. My husband does it all behind my back. Well, I'm not making it for the awards,
right?
But my husband has taught me that. Yeah, you know what, you got to promote the story so people actually hear the story.
Right.
So I get that. I guess. I'm more too in the trenches. Just I want to hear the story. I want to go down and and sit with people and learn about their lives and then use my craft to tell their story. So that's a whole other world promoting. So
how good is
know.
that? Your husband?
Oh yeah, he's pretty good.
Man.
Yeah. So yeah, exactly. I mean, it's awesome to win an award, and it's an honor and it's a privilege. Because
but I love the fact you don't even know the names of the awards.
It's terrible, and I don't mean to dishonor it. It's just I'm more focused in the field. I suppose.
I think it speaks to your singleness of purpose to really honor and respect the story itself and not to to necessarily think it's all about what accomplishments or achievements that it has. But obviously it tells too of the wonderful work that you are doing. But you recently kind of spoke at a pretty important event, which I'm pretty excited to hear more about.
Yeah.
Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, well, seriously, talk about, like ending up in really cool places. Earlier this year I spoke at the UN, the United Nations in New York. It was for the You've Got to Tell Me.
Social impact films as a means to promoting inclusion. I love that award, that title.
Me too. I that's why I didn't want to get it wrong. So I had the honor of speaking about that, and I was invited there through the LAMPA Russian Film Festival. So the year before, I had won an award with a short doco that I had made, and then because of that association, we were invited to the UN to speak on that behalf. So I shared the platform with fellow filmmakers throughout the world.
Wow.
And each of us got to speak about different topics. Mine was, how do you make films that that are inclusive? And I guess I had the honor to share, about, well, you sit down and you respect that person. And I believe my job is to make someone sound good, as in technical sound, and also, make them look good, as in, is the camera in focus? Is it, fairly well lit? All those things are important, and they're done out of respect, so that person can share their story. So I kind of suppose I think I kind of talked about the nuts and bolts of, how do you film and how do you tell a good story? And again, it's not assuming knowledge. It's, helping someone take the story out of them and helping, listening to them. And the first thing you do when you're making a good, compelling story, to me, is you listen. So it was awesome because, the United Nations too, I suppose, we got to walk around and I realised, wow, like these guys are, they are doing a great work throughout the nations for the vulnerable and for those, for the poor, for the disabled. So it was really cool to meet fellow filmmakers who all sort of decided, hey, this is what we want to do with our craft. We want to give a voice to people who don't often have a voice in media or film. Russia's actually quite switched on in that space. They're making shows and even in advertising and things like that. It's really about kind of, earlier we talked about you don't know someone's kind of story. There's certain groups of people that we just don't know their story.
Exactly.
So I guess it was really cool to meet fellow filmmakers who are like, hey, let's share the stories that people don't really hear about, so it was an honor and kind of a bizarre kind of, wow, how did I even get here?
Yeah.
Totally.
I'm
definitely more comfortable just behind a camera and, following someone around rather than taking the platform and speaking. But in saying that, I guess I've also realised through it, like, what a great opportunity and to be able to speak on that platform and not just for myself, but I got to share a film that I made in Mozambique. So really at the end of the day, their voices were heard on the United Nations.
What film was that?
It's called Mission Educate.
Okay.
So that was just actually a short story about a charity in Mozambique, but the heroes of that story all got a platform at the UN. So it was super exciting. That was a dream come true, to like, they had the ears of many influential people and, that short film had awesome people in it, and they spoke at the UN that day, not just me.
Oh, how good is that?
Yeah.
That kind of award about, social impact as a means to promoting inclusion. Well, even this podcast, the tagline is inspiring the fight for a world where everyone belongs, and part of the Drive of You Belong, the charity that we have in that's most active in Toowoomba at the moment and is addressing the Yazidi people who have recently found refuge in Australia. Incredibly beautiful people that just a few years ago they honoured and remembered their own genocide. And at the hands of ISIS. And they've come here now, many families ripped apart, torn apart, trying to piece back their life together here in Australia, but very misunderstood, very beautiful people. They stole my heart when I was living in northern Iraq and spending so much time with them and understanding and learning their cultures, their religious practices, their language, their way of life was just so enriching. But this idea of telling their story in a way that helps them feel like they belong. Inclusion isn't saying we'll let you in. It's this sense of no, you belong here.
Absolutely.
And I have so much more to learn from you.
Yes.
Than maybe what you feel like you have to learn from us and our culture and our language and our way of life. And it's that fostering of posturing to listen, to learn, to love first, really I think brings out, creates a world that is just so much more beautiful and hopefully more just.
Yeah, for sure. I think we're in this together, aren't we?
Yeah.
So that is inclusion. It's not like one is better than the other. We've all got strengths and weaknesses, and like I kind of like to think that I have a skill set and I have experience behind a camera and with all the technical goodies, and I want to come alongside someone else and go, hey, I want to use what I've got to sort of, not help as in, poor you,
hand
but hey, but I'm
elevate
like, hey,
and
I know
empower,
how to do this, Not everyone knows how to film or whatever, but hey, I want to do that so we can share your story.
Yeah.
So
yeah, 100%. I mean, even when we were talking about this earlier, like those that have gone through suffering and trauma and you hear their stories, one thing you realize is there are some of the most strong, resilient, powerful, courageous human beings. And I shudder to think how I would respond or react or what situation I'd be had I gone through what they experience. And that's, I think, where we humbly say, look, you not only belong, but I need you. I need your story. I need what you have to offer and bring.
100%. You think, wow, like far out, like I live such a privileged life. I am a child of refugees.
Wow.
Yet I don't think I realized that until I was 40 years old that, oh, wow, like my parents escaped from a war-torn country. And, I have no idea what that's like. I am an Aussie and I have been privileged. One of my best mates at school said, man, you used to eat Cocoa Pops for breakfast,
Wow.
And I think, wow, I have no idea, I was talking to Mum the other day and she was like, yeah, some people in Australia haven't been hungry. They haven't. And it's like, wow, my mum was quite poor growing up. And, I think, wow, I have no idea of that kind of life. Yet the resilience and the strength and the wisdom and the knowledge that you can gain, when you talk to people who have endured and lived through, some of the most horrific stuff, you're going, wow, like, yeah, I think, I just think humans are fascinating and we have so much to learn from each other, and like my strengths are not for myself,
right.
Like if that makes sense, like any kind of privilege or I hate to say it, like blessing that I may have, like as an Australian, like,
right.
I am very passionate that I want to that's not just for me.
That's a responsibility you have, right?
Yeah, I think, I'm really challenged by that, to not just live for myself,
I guess what I hear us saying or trying to convey is there's this moment in time where we need to just listen. We need to be reflective of where we're at and the opportunity we have, what is in our hands to elevate those around us that for no fault of their own have been exploited, have been whether it just be for what country they were born in, what family dynamics that they were in. How can we use our gifts, our talents, the things that we have to elevate and share and give voice to those around us? And I love how wonderful and how incredibly powerful the gift of story and the gift of film and the gift of a photography and the arts are in being able to do that. Now we've kind of talked a bit about some of the highlights for you, some of the great experiences that you've had in this journey. What about some more challenging, the experiences that you've found in this work? And can you shed some light on maybe a moment or an experience or that you've had that's just kind of really been hard?
Oh, golly. I think the stuff that I have done and shot, I'm a bit of an emotional person, so it's like, even thinking about I take it seriously when I sit down with someone and I interview them and I hear their stories, so I think the hardest thing is really kind of digesting everything that you're hearing, and then wrestling with, well, how do I tell this story respectfully, because this person has trusted me with their fears or with their trauma, and I think that's the most challenging, that has been so challenging. I mean, definitely the Uncontained Love stuff was really hardcore because we interviewed so many different people and their stories were just, horrendous. And the children far out, like it's just not. And you're wrestling with that, hearing these stories and blown away by their strength. Yet, like, hey, we're all human, like far out. Like I can only scratch the surface of what they have been through. Yet, I find that really crushing. Thankfully, I travel with a friend, so I'm more of the beauty and the emotional person, and then my journo is the truth seeker. So we kind of at the end of every day, if it's been a big thing, hearing people's stories, we're kind of, talking to each other and trying to figure it all out too, because it's not, I'm not in this to sensationalize. Yeah. I really want to honor people, and so people understand or people know about what's going on in the world. So gosh,
that must be hard. I mean, when you say journo, you mean a journalist. I'm just trying to translate for the American
oh yes, of course,
audience out there. But I could imagine how important it is to have someone alongside you in the process to work through these stories, because when you hear something, sometimes you need to be able to debrief and kind of say, hey, this affected me, and I there is such a thing as a vicarious trauma when you're helping and being so entwined in someone else's suffering and pain that you can carry that, and I could imagine how important it is to have someone alongside you in that work.
Yeah, well, I think it's not only that, like you sort of spend days, and plus, I really want to be respectful when I'm somewhere. And then also you come back and I edit the docos, so you're reliving it. and you're hearing these stories
Wow.
over and over again. And I am someone who really kind of, empathetic,
Takes it on.
Yep. And I think that's a good thing because you want to try to do that in your story. Ultimately, when I put it all together, I'm trying to create empathy and share their story in a respectful way. So editing it too, it can be tricky, but it's so well worth it. Because stories like that need to be told and people need to be heard. And even I suppose with the stuff we did in Mozambique, you can. I have seen a lot of poverty in my career with the travel that I have done, and it's kind of like when I take someone who hasn't really seen that and you're like, oh, whoa, are you okay? But even then I still get impacted because I think, hold on, this isn't right. Last year we were in Kibera, which is one of the biggest urban slums in Nairobi, just outside of Nairobi. And you think, wow, people have got beautiful lives there. They're crushing it at school and, but it's not right. The place sanitation and that's you're just going, wow, people live in amongst this. How have we let how has this happened? So it's that wrestle. I think that's the biggest challenge. Wrestling, going far out. Something's got to change. I don't know how it's gonna change. But deep in my heart, it's that's not right that kid is sleeping that way and
totally.
So I think that's probably, without going into
as specific, I can only imagine. You mentioned the partner you've done some work with, a journalist. Is there anything are you able to talk about maybe some of the projects you're working on now or that's coming up, or some of the things that kind of you're looking for in the future?
At the moment we've already shot a little bit of some a doco, but we're really in pre-production. We're just learning all about the South Sudanese community in Australia.
Amazing.
So which
beautiful,
is
beautiful.
Yeah,
people.
Again, those guys, Australian media hasn't been so nice. So again, our heart isn't to share that kind of story.
I love it.
We're really at the stage of interviewing a lot of people and relationship building as well, because we really want to tell a story again that is one is true. And is also still respectful.
And it's their story that they want to tell, right? It's
100%.
not our story that we want to project onto them.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. That's, again, I just come with the skill set,
I love that.
then allow, those guys to tell their story. And of course I use my craft to, kind of stitch it all together. But by no means do I never want to come with an agenda because I've worked in that space. That's called advertising. No, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, totally. And, as it's been a bit of a challenge, this project, right, with the COVID kind of restrictions that have now been placed on in Melbourne, and that's got to be a bit discouraging, I'm sure.
It is. It is a little bit. So we have a lot to shoot in Melbourne. So last year I went to South Sudan, and that was an experience and an eye-opening experience. Again, we went there to just really listen and to find out where is South Sudan? What's it like over there? What's happening? We met some amazing people, and again, you're just like, wow, these guys have been through generational trauma with war and all sorts. So again, we did that short trip to just gain understanding. So we've got a lot to shoot in Melbourne, and unfortunately COVID has shut us down. So I guess we sit and wait for that.
Totally. Well, you're definitely not one to rush. You're obviously one to really be patient in the process, and so hoping that will be able to kind of come together at the right time. you talked about your wrestle with the tension of seeing someone living in conditions that's just not right. What though is it that gives you hope as you're looking forward to the future, though, even amidst that, the challenge and the wrestle of hey, this isn't right? What drives you? What's your, I hate to say your why, but what is your hope that just keeps you going in this work? What is it that you just ultimately believe in that keeps driving you forwards?
Well, yeah, I hope my hope for the things that Fish Films does is that it will give a platform to people and their stories and subjects that we don't really hear about, you know. So it's in the mix, it's in the conversation. And my hope is, yes, I wrestle with, you know, things aren't right, you see it, but I've also seen champions rise up despite what they've gone through, and you know, they floor me because you're just like, wow, I hate to use this word, but resilience, far out. It's just insane. Some people, what they've been through, what they've endured, and trauma and mental health, like far out, that is not, it's, you know, that's not an easy subject, and it's something that, you know, maybe we all, far out, I reckon I wrestle with it, you know. But when I meet people who have been through stuff and you're going, wow, like despite their trauma or their experience or where they've cut their poverty, whatever, they're rising up, they're doing the best that they can. They are, you know, in their circumstance. And I suppose, you know, I do have a faith that this you know, this isn't just it. So, you know, I guess it just doesn't end there. It doesn't mean that we don't go, oh, well, there's nothing we can do about it. But in certainly cheering people on, seeing them, you know, kind of, I don't know, stand up and do what they want to do, you know. I love it.
Well, you touched on your faith. So how you know, how does your faith then kind of contribute to your passion, really, to fight, you know, to use film to fight injustice, to
well, definitely, you know. I think my faith is pretty important. It's central to everything that I do. You know, on so many different levels. I think since you know, becoming a Christian, I realised that there's more to life than me.
Wow.
That, you know, my experiences, I've had really cool experiences in my career. And I suppose I've definitely been challenged to use that experience and skill set for people who don't, you know, who haven't had that platform. I know I've said that a million times, but I'm just so convicted by, there's so much in the Bible that I read and I'm just like, oh my gosh, you know, I've got these talents. I don't want to bury them. Even though my insecurity's far out, I battle with insecurity. I'm not good enough. Sure. Like, you know, my story's good and this and that, you know, the pressure of whatever. But then I think I don't want to bury it. I just want to do it because I know I can sort of, you know, do it. You know, and then, you know, stories like David and how he fights Goliath and he doesn't wear Saul's armor. Sure. You know, he operates with his slingshot and his, you know, rock or whatever it is. And I sort of think, hey, you know, maybe my slingshot and rock is my camera and my computer, you know. How cool. And the injustice, you know, the giant of injustice, you know, I'm going to take that down by just using my camera and my computer to, you know, to talk about it, to share people's stories, how they've overcome, what they've been through. You know, you first got to acknowledge stuff. Like, again, a core thing in my faith is, you know, as a Christian, repentance is big. So to repent, you got to acknowledge, oh, hold on, something's not right. You know what I mean? So like,
and how am I contributing
exactly
to
like,
even,
you know,
injustice around me? It's that ability to kind of step back, right, and say, look, am I complicit?
Yeah, 100%.
And it's doing the hard work of being, reflective. And I think when you do, you're right, you kind of.
Oh, for sure. Again, to me, the Bible isn't, it's a portrait of someone's life sometimes, but it's also a mirror. And you're looking at it going, far out, have I done that to someone? Have I, been racist? Have I, pushed someone aside?
Exploited, cheated.
Just to get my own gain.
Yeah.
So to me, my faith is core and completely compels and convicts me to, hold on, am I respecting this person that I'm filming? Am I respecting, because you're sort of running through, or, you're filming in their house and you're lugging gear through their house. Hold on, before I do any of that, this person's a human being.
Yeah.
Who are they? Again, I'm here to share their story, not, whiz in and whiz back out or whatever. So I'm compelled by that because I guess that's how Christ loves. And if you don't do it, the whole series I did with Uncontained Love was about love, and it's like love does, Bob Goff.
Exactly.
I watched him the other day on your podcast, and and it's so true. And it's like, hold on, too, if you don't do it in love, you're just a noise.
Right.
So that's harsh, because sometimes people, I could totally get caught up in, these awards and speaking at the UN. I'm not doing it for that. I'm doing it, one, out of a love that I've experienced from a God that I know.
Yeah.
And that he loves that person as well, way more than I do.
Thank you. Thank you, Jude. Thank you, really. It's really just humbling just to hear your approach and the way that you go about it. I don't think there's anyone better positioned to do what you do. I'm just so, I'm grateful to be getting to know you and to hear just the incredible heart that you have. Fish Films now is your little project that you've kind of began. How long ago did you start this? What is it, a production house?
It's
you. It's
pretty basically much me. But I do contract other people because I've worked in the industry. But right now it's just me. And it really is just me out of obedience, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Fish Films is a production house that looks for stories that are of people. I love people stories.
Yeah.
I love long format stuff. But, the reality is I have to do other stuff as well.
Sure.
But I've left the corporate space. So really I try to help charities tell their stories. And occasionally I'll do a corporate job to, side hustle to do the jobs that I really want to do. So it's a production house that really wants to take production skills and use it for social impact and a good impact. So quite often, I will come alongside someone who's already doing the work. So again, I'm not the hero or whatever. I definitely align myself with guys that are well established in the field.
Sure.
And they've got that relationship, and I have relationship with the
very
those
collaborative
guys or something.
Process.
Absolutely.
In that sense. Yeah.
Again, because you want to respect these people and tell their story with the utmost respect. Yeah.
Well, I have the utmost respect for you, Jude. And
oh golly.
And what are the ways that people can learn more about? Obviously, they can go to Fish Films. Are there other ways they can follow you? Are there other ways people can get involved? You talk about collaboration.
Well, I suppose, fishfilms.com.au is my website. Fishfilms.photos photos is my Instagram. If you want to follow, it's kind of hit and miss, all that sort of stuff. Sure. I'm terrible. Collaboration. Hey, if anyone's out there, I'm always looking for an interesting story. And I want to tell people's stories and the work that they're doing, whether it's with humanity or environmental stuff. I don't know.
Yeah, no, that's perfect.
I guess all the stuff I've done so far with fish films, which actually you asked when did I don't even remember when I officially started it, but the last 2 years I've really kind of stepped away from other work that I was doing to really work on the projects of fish films. So yeah, that's probably 2 years in the making. So up until now, it's really been organically, I'll come across a story or a person. I've definitely am super compelled to help those that don't have a voice, to help the poor, to help the starving, the abused and neglected. At now I'm actually wrestling. What is that? I still can't shake. Although Australia is going through its own stuff and there are a lot of people within our own nation going through stuff, I'm still very compelled to the poor. And the sad reality is there are poor people in this world. Yeah. Yes, there's poor people in Australia. Sure. But I'm talking about super duper. Yeah. Not cool. Yeah. I know that I'm call to them. But anywhere along those lines, I'll be there.
Well, hopefully when we can travel again and we can break through those borders, we'll be able to get you on a plane out there.
I've definitely been.
You might even be going back to Russia, right?
Well, yeah, hopefully if the borders open, I have been asked to be a judge on the LAMPA Film Festival, which is all about social films and impact films and social advertising, which is super random. Again, my husband found it. I didn't even know it existed, but their work is incredible because they really are trying to give a voice to those that don't have a voice in the media and in that space.
Jude, thank you so much for coming on in. I have just loved chatting with you. Your smile, it's incredible, and your joy that you have, and I definitely think that you are the perfect person to be telling people's story, to be trusted with people's story, and I really want to honour you and value and appreciate you for what you do.
Oh, thanks.
I really hope that we can get the word out and people can really see the value of fish films and the value of you as a beautiful storyteller. And thank you for entrusting me with this podcast and this time together. I've had a great time.
Thank you. I hope it wasn't too crazy. I'm not used to this.
No, well.
Now I feel like I got schooled. This is how you interview someone.
This is my first podcast, so you're being schooled by a rookie. So hopefully,
I've learned a lot today.
Yeah,
thank you.
That's good. Well, thanks again.
Thank you.
Yeah.